Well, nowadays you've got to have that because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. Okay, welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Daniel Hussey of Declan Sport. I suppose obviously in the past couple of weeks, obviously there's been a lot of discussion obviously going on in Congress, obviously with the Central Committee Task Force, obviously looking to make a lot of different changes to the GAA over the past, obviously in the past couple of years, we've all seen the number of problems, the number of issues that we've had with the structures of the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. So I've brought in Daniel Hussey here. We're going to run through both proposals, Proposal A, Proposal B. We're going to be discussing the provincial championships. Will they still be worthwhile now in this new format? Should the original format be kept? All this discussion. But first of all, Dan, how's things with yourself?
Yeah, good. Excited to talk inter-county GAA, but I guess with proposals it always gets a bit messy, but it's great to actually have a couple of proposals in front of us because otherwise you're kind of going in swings and roundabouts looking for other stuff. So yeah, it's exciting enough, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Like definitely a lot to discuss anyway. We'll definitely get a couple of images on screen as well, just to run through the different proposals to try and explain them all. But I suppose first of all, like given I suppose the nature of the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship in the past couple of years, we've obviously this year in particular, we've seen a whole host of one-sided games like the Mayo Leitrim game. You're looking at some of the games in the Leinster Championship. Obviously in Munster, you had Kerry, who absolutely trashed sides like Cork, Clare and Tipperary. So would you be of the opinion, like most people, that any change is needed at this point? Like not just, it's almost like one of them things where it's not just change, it's any change really.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for a long time, I think everyone's been looking for the perfect solution. And even with these couple of proposals, people are still looking for, oh, well, what can we do this better? Well, we could still do this better. Like, regardless, I think Proposal B, and we'll get into that in a second, it is so much better than what we have at the moment. Like, you think about a Division 4 team, you know, in a Connacht or a Munster, they've got no hope of anything really in the provincial championships. You mentioned some of the hammerings. Like, if you were drawing up this system today, like, and you were coming up with proposals to have provisionals and had it the way it was, you just wouldn't, you'd be laughed out the door. But because we have 130 years of history, we have to kind of go along with it. And in fairness to this proposal, we're not getting rid of the provincial championships. They still have a great history, particularly in Ulster. But what we're doing is we're trying to come up with a better system where at the end of the day, every county's given a fair chance. Because for years, and I'm not knocking the great Kerry teams or not knocking the great Dublin team of the last few years, but in particular the Kerry side of things, they'd have two games and then they're in an All-Ireland quarter-final with in the old system with no test at all, or maybe a subpar Cork. Whereas in Ulster, you have, if you're in the prelims, like Tyrone were drawn a lot, they'd have to have up to 4 games just to get to that quarter-final. So straight away, there's an unfairness there. It's just, it's unacceptable how it's got to this point. But now I do think the proposal B, while it kind of it takes the link to the All-Ireland series away from the provincial championships, it does give us some sort of fairness where all 32 counties have an equal opportunity, equal amount of games played before playing in a potential All-Ireland quarterfinal. Although, as I said, it's definitely not a perfect solution, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see a comment coming in there from Mr. Bugsy. Says we should drop Proposal A. And I suppose we'll just get an image on screen there of Proposal A. I suppose, first of all, there, just so a lot of people can understand, obviously, what Proposal A is. And I think we're all very much of the agreement that Proposal A certainly isn't the right solution. But this was an image I've taken here from Sky GAA. And as you can see there, this is Proposal A. So provincial championships retained. It's 4 groups of 8. Some Leinster and Ulster counties moved. You've got 2 round-robin groups per province with winners advancing to the finals. The second and third place teams will progress to round 1 of the All-Ireland Series. 4th-place team in each group play in the Tailteann Cup. 3 rounds of qualifiers with 4 teams reaching the All-Ireland quarterfinals, and then finish with traditional quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. So, like, I suppose, first of all, that proposal, like the idea of moving some counties into championships just for the nature of making sure it's like a perfect balance of all the teams. probably like in all honesty, I'm kind of surprised that proposal was even like, it's even a proposal, because I don't understand how you do it. Like, how would you get some sides to move to certain provinces? How would it go about? Like, you could bet, there's one thing for certain, like there was no way they'd move Dublin to, the Ulster Championship, or they'd move Dublin over to Connacht or to Munster or whatever, or anything like that. And it would feel like in some weird way, like the lesser counties would probably get moved over, or how they decide it. So Proposal A, I think, in many ways, surely anyways, definitely is not the one we're going for here.
No, and I think the talk is that, or I think that what they are recommending is that. So I presume, I actually don't know how they pick the counties, whether it's done presumably by either last year's provincial championship or the lower ranked teams. They basically kind of play off with each other, say a couple of Ulster counties, and the losing teams have to either go to Leinster or Connacht, and the winning teams can stay in their own province. But now, like, if you're winning in Ulster, I know you want to win the Ulster Championship, but then like your easier draw could be potentially in a Connacht, maybe not, but you know what I mean, or in a Leinster. So you can get real kind of, it's a no-go from the start. It's I think it's kind of something so the provincial councils can hold on to. I see the Ulster Provincial Councillor Brian McAvoy kind of drumming support for it solely, I think, from Proposal A on every single podcast website I've listened to over the last week or two. And you know what, fair play to him. Like, he kind of has his points and he sticks with it. But it's like trying to get the turkeys to vote for Christmas. Like, there's no way on earth he's going to vote to, in his eyes, make the provincial championships less by going with a Proposal B, which is why his only option here is Proposal A, which won't get the votes, and he's already admitted that on other interviews. So I think it's a no-go. Like, there's no point spending too long on it, because it's just not going to get through at all, and I'd have question marks whether Proposal B will either. But a Proposal A, there's just no support for the start. The GPA aren't supporting it. It doesn't seem a lot of the councils have supported, although the Ulster have. But it doesn't really make sense. It's like kind of trying to put a bandage on a solution that, we need a permanent solution here. We don't need a bandage. So yeah, it's a no-go straight away.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100% agree. I think I don't even think it fixes the solution as well. You'd still end up having one-sided games. Like, if you were to move like certain counties over to Connacht or whatever, like let's say, for example, they were to move Dublin over to Connacht, you could then have a situation where Dublin end up playing Leitrim, in the first round of the Connacht Championship. So it actually makes the situation even worse and even more laughable. I suppose we'll move on to Proposal B. We'll get an image on screen there as well, once again from Sky Sports. And obviously this is the proposal certainly that a lot of people are looking towards at the moment. So as we can see there, it links league and championship, each team playing 7 matches, filtering into an All-Ireland series. In the preliminary All-Ireland quarterfinals, or qualifiers, I should say, second and third in Division 2 drawn to play the Division 3 and Division 4 champions. In the All-Ireland quarterfinals, the top 4 teams from Division 1 will be drawn to play against 5th in Division 1, the Division 2 winners, and then the preliminary qualifier winners. The Tailteann Cup provides for the teams from Division 3 and 4 that do not qualify for the All-Ireland series, and then provincial championships retained, but as pre-season competition. So, I mean, there's a lot to kind of work through when you look at it very quickly. Like, you kind of nearly need to take a step back and think about it a little bit. But what are your kind of thoughts on Proposal B there? And do you think that system could be, the big saviour for Gaelic football? Because I think that's what, the GPA were kind of saying there during the week. And Morgan coming out doing an interview, a couple, Tom Parsons, obviously the head of the GPA, coming out as well. So what do you think? Do you think Proposal B is going to be the saviour for Gaelic football and what we need going into 2022?
To be fair, like, as I said, like, considering loads of other proposals I've seen over the last few years, like this Champions League format and keeping the leagues the way they are, like, I don't know if I would have been, until I sat down and looked at the proposal, I don't know if I would have been comfortable with linking the league into the championship, considering how good a competition the league is. But having sat through it and looked at a lot of scenarios, I definitely think this is as close to no-brainer as you're going to get. Like, you're never going to get a perfect solution here where everybody's happy. All 32 counties are happy. All councils are happy. All managers are happy. All fans are happy. And there's more money in the GAA, all that kind of stuff. You're never going to get a perfect solution. But I think what's, like, with a lot of work here, I think they've stumbled upon something that I definitely think with a few tweaks, it could really work. And I think it's worth a go. And I understand it's not a trial period or anything. This is a permanent solution. Like, it will come in, but there's definitely room to kind of manipulate a little bit if it's not working or certain aspects of it aren't working. But I see no reason how it won't work and there won't be a real hype about the championship. Like, we've always said these league games are the best part of the season. Division 1 games at each other. Well, now you're having Division 1 games, but they're in the middle of the summer. Haven't had your provincial championships when the league takes place as well. And because it's a split season, it's all going to be condensed between, I think it's January and July. So you'll have your provincial championships January, February, March, and then you're into your championship, and you're into this like massive festival of football, which is the reason we voted for a split season, so the club can have the second half of the year and the intercounty can have the first half of the year. So look, I think I do like it. Like, I like the aspect of every team's playing 7 games like normal in their league, except it's a championship group game in effect. But every team's also got a chance of winning an All-Ireland, you know. So, and that's always kind of been the thing where, and it'll never happen, a Division 4 county winning an All-Ireland, but they can dream at the start of the year and go on that run. And if they fall just short, they maybe might win a Tailteann Cup, which has 16 teams on it. There's a bit of hype about that, where you can qualify for next year's Sam Maguire. There's a lot of good incentives here that includes all the counties. And like, I think the top counties will be happy because they're playing against Division 1 teams. And then Division 4 counties will be happy because they have that chance of a potential All-Ireland, or at least a pathway to it. So while there might still need to be tweaks, I do think it's a proposal worth going with. And I think it kind of covers a lot of the bases. And we always got to think about this as supporters, as anyone involved in the game. What do the players want? And the fact that the GPA have said 80% of their members want this proposal, I think that should be enough for this to get in Congress, no questions asked. But fortunately, Congress is a lot more political like that. We haven't heard from Larry McCarthy, GA president, or a lot of the GA members who will be voting, which way they'll be voting. So it'll be an interesting couple of weeks. But for me, there's no excuse for this not to come in based on what Tom Parsons has presented last week on the 80% number wanting this proposal in.
Yeah, no, and I think it's definitely, out of the 2 proposals anyway, I think it's definitely the better of the 2. And I think a league-based championship is definitely something that I think a lot of people have really been looking towards over the past couple of years. And in particular this year, like the league games that we got this year were probably some of the best, you know, games we've seen all year. Like, you think of the Dublin Kerry game, and, you know, even when Dublin played Galway, you had Kerry against Galway, like all these brilliant games, even in the Ulster games as well, like Armagh getting that win over Monaghan the first day out, like, was a cracking game. So like, now we could have a situation where those games actually matter something for more important, and not to devalue the league in any way or anything like that. We all know the league is important, but certainly for a lot of counties, you know, like for the likes of your Kerrys, your Dublins, even Tyrone now to a certain extent, given they've won the All-Ireland, like, winning a league is great and it's a lovely medal and all the rest, and I'm sure a lot of players will cherish it and keep the medals and whatnot, but the All-Ireland is the most important thing. And now you have a situation where not only do you keep the league and keep that same format, but you also, you know, you're adding the championship into it as well. So it's going to make for, I suppose, from a fan point of view, like, it's going to make for some exciting football, and you're going to have a whole host of football now as well.
Well, you take the Dubs, like, obviously we're both Dubs. A lot of Dublin fans would always say the best part of supporting Dublin for the season is watching them in league away games to Clones. I remember watching Dublin and Killarney. I went on a Paddy's weekend in 2018, I think it was, to watch Galway play. Ireland won the Grand Slam that weekend. It was a great weekend, ending with Galway against Dublin on a Sunday afternoon in a league game that didn't really matter. I think the teams played each other in a league final a few weeks later, or there were league finals to come. But my point to that is, imagine that game actually having a bit of meaning in a championship, or, like, you know, we need to make sure we get into the top 5 or 6 or top 4, sorry. So there's just a lot of, it just makes those games bigger, but it's taking the best part of the GA year, but putting a lot more emphasis on it. And now all of a sudden the league is like the center of the championship. And I know I heard someone saying, I think it was Paul Flynn saying, we need to be careful, like, to kind of sell this. It's like a brand new format almost, as opposed to saying we're playing the league and the championship to try and get it past. I think it is important to kind of take some of that point, in the sense that this is a brand new competition now going to be invented. It's the new championship format. It's like 4 championship groups of staggered Division 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in each division, if you finish, you know, for example, in top 4 in Division 1, you're through. If you win Division 2, you're through to the quarterfinals. Second and third get a playoff against the Division 3 and Division 4 champions. It just staggers it so well. And then you have the Tailteann Cup, which hopefully will have a bit of meaning, hopefully have a bit of backing, not just a holiday for the team or for the players, which it should, but also gives you a chance to be in the Sam Maguire next year. So there's a lot of good incentives. There's a lot of good stuff with it, but it all comes back to, it's, you know, again, kind of contradicting what I just said, but it's bringing the league, putting those meaning into those matches. They're now championship group matches, and there's 7 massive games. And it's in the middle of the summer. You're going to end up as a supporter going to at least the home games and maybe 1 or 2 away days. And if they get the pricing right and season tickets, there's no reason that they shouldn't drive more revenue that will ultimately go back into the GAA, which is a stumbling block that a lot of provincial councils say that it won't earn as much money. But there's so many more games now in the middle of the summer that I just can't see it not taking off if it goes ahead. I just think the buzz, if this passes 61-39 in a couple of weeks, the absolute buzz around the place in GA circles over Christmas will be immense. Like, how's this going to work? Like, you know, it'll be almost like kind of half excitement, half dread. The provincials will be round robin, like you mentioned at the top of the show. That's something a little bit different. And people are like, it's going to turn into the O'Byrne Cup. I don't think it will. Maybe the round robin games, I accept that, but suddenly you're into a Leinster semi-final and final. There's no reason why you won't get, you know, 5 figures at Croke Park for a Leinster semi-final doubleheader in around that March, April time, considering people haven't watched GA inter-county since it ended in September. So I've high hopes for it if it gets through. That's the question, if it does get through or not. And I think given that it's half the usual Congress, the special Congress is about 50% of the delegates, it's a stronger chance of getting through now than it does in a February Congress. So it's got to be now or never, I think, is the kind of sense I'm getting from talking to a few people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, like, obviously with the provincial councils, like, I think a lot of people forget as well that the pull that they have, I suppose, on the structure of the championship over the past couple of years. We were obviously discussing a little bit earlier about the you know, the head of Ulster, obviously, and kind of some of his podcasts he's been on, and obviously he's very adamant for Proposal A. Like, could that be something that, even if there was a vote that was to go through, to say, you know, that, okay, we're going with Proposal B, that the, you know, the provincial councils have so much of a pull there on the Leinster Championship, on the Ulster Championship, that could be not just, maybe not an issue for next year, but at some point further down the line? Because, like, you could imagine a situation as well, like, for next year, fair enough, I don't think it will, like, there is a sense that the provincial championships will be devalued a little bit, but I think it's more so as years go on, because you could have a lot of TV companies as well who maybe sort of lose interest in the provincial championships. Like, maybe they don't want to show those games. Maybe, you know, there's not enough interest there, and then all of a sudden that becomes an issue. So could that be a potential issue with the Proposal B? Maybe not next year, but further down the line.
Yeah, like, I do accept that. And I know a lot of people supporting Proposal B won't accept that they'll be devalued. I know Niall Morgan's come out and saying the Ulster Championship won't be devalued. Like, I do think it'll obviously matter a lot less, given that there's no direct All-Ireland link. I do accept that. But I also, to my point I made about a minute or two ago, that because of the time of year it's at, it's going to be, by the time it rolls in properly, so the provincial semi-finals, I think, are going to be around a March, April time. Considering the lack of inter-county GAA, like, forget this year, going forward, like, the All-Ireland finals are going to be done by, I think, at the end of July. We've given us a split season. So you've got essentially 6 or 7, possibly up to 9 months when a provincial final comes along. There's no way that there won't be interest in those games. And if there's fans going to the games, then there's people at home that will want to watch it. And there's so many broadcasters now with the Allianz League, like TG Carr, they can get on board. And Virgin Media haven't covered GA in a while. And I know they've lost their big Champions League rights. They only have 1 game as opposed to 16. So they're kind of, in my opinion, a broadcaster that I would expect to bid for some sort of GA rights under a new proposal. So I do think putting all that into it, and obviously everyone wants the All-Ireland series, and everyone wants what will now be the championship groups. But these are like the ancient old rivalries, like an Ulster final. If the Ulster, as I heard someone say, if the Ulster Championships is good, as you guys say it is up there, then why can't you back yourself in an Ulster semi-final or final? Or if you have an Ulster final in Clonus, the end of March, April, before the championship kicks off, that you're not going to get 20,000 at that? I think you will. Like, I do think you will. It'll be less than the sellouts that you'll get if it's like the third last game before you go on to win an All-Ireland. That's just a fact. But I do think there will be enough interest. And as long as the provincial councils can see more money, then they'll be happy enough. And one important point, like, Pork Duffy was the reason the Super 8s came in. And he drummed that, all the politics over that with a few weeks ago. And all the weaker counties were saying, well, we're not getting anything out of it. And he was saying the extra money we get from Super 8 games, I remember exactly what he said, will be going back into counties like yourself. So if there's some sort of pull by the GA over the next week or two to guarantee to provincial councils that any extra money we make from this brand new tournament, which I feel there will be a surplus as opposed to what we're earning at the moment, that'll go back into provincial councils, and then it'll drip into the counties and into the grassroots, which is what everyone wants at the end of the day. But yeah, you'd always be concerned, and given Brian's kind of like closed-mindedness and I've listened to him on a lot of podcasts, so I think I've given him a fair kind of hearing on it. I really have. And I just feel like he's barely mentioned what the players want, to be honest with you. And to listen to Niall Morgan, to listen to all the players that came out along with Tom Parsons and the GPA, and that 80% number, I think should be enough for regional councils to say, forget ourselves here. Like, players want change. Players, we don't have a sport here without players. And they're kind of getting forgot about a lot, particularly at Congress. So I think finally, Tom Parsons' leadership is really shone through over the last few months. And I do think it's now no excuse for these provincial councils to be upset about this. But again, it's like the turkey spoken for Christmas. They're never going to be happy with it if they're not making as much money as they were before. So I don't know how the finances will work, but I'll go back to my point. Pork Duffy pushed the Super 8s through. So if the GA want this to come through in a week and a half, whenever it is, towards the end of the month, then it will get through. So it's up. I'll be very intrigued to see how Larry McCarthy and others in the GA and Tom Ryan and stuff come out with over the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And we are doing this live, so if you could leave any comments for anyone who's watching, let me know your thoughts and opinions on both Proposal A and Proposal B, and whether or not even maybe the current format should be kept, because I suppose that is Proposal C as well, like to keep the current format. And obviously we were speaking at the top of the show, obviously, with the fact that I think almost any change is best at this point of view. I suppose we'll run through maybe some sort of some arguments against Proposal B and a few different, and there is probably one argument against the Proposal B that, in my opinion, probably does have a good bit of validity to it. And we'll actually get an image on screen. So I actually took this from the GPA themselves. And this, for example, is how the structure would actually work. So you can see there, for example, you've got your 5 teams in Division 1, you've got your 3 teams in Division 2. Obviously, your 5 teams there from Division 1 go automatically, along with the Division 2 winners, automatically into the quarterfinals. But you will have a situation where the Division 3 and Division 4 winners will go into the preliminary qualifiers against the Division 2 sides there. So I suppose like the only kind of like, because you're kind of looking at it there, and I'm not too sure who actually put these groups together, because Clare obviously aren't a Division 3 team, but like I suppose like the main kind of question there is, we'll take the image off screen now, is like, say for example, if you're a Wicklow, for example, in Division 3, like realistically speaking, winning Division 3 is probably quite unlikely, with all due respect to Wicklow. Like their objective will probably be to stay in Division 3. But let's say, for example, they were to get relegated. Well, then they know that next year they actually have a great chance of progressing further into the All-Ireland series if they actually win Division 4. So like it starts becoming a bit of a, like, I understand you can't please everyone and you're trying to include everyone, but say for example, even then, like in that image there, you're seeing the likes of, you know, the side that finishes 6th in Division 1, you know, won't progress on into the All-Ireland series, but the Division 3 and Division 4 winners will. I understand you're trying to include everyone, you're trying to include the Division 3, the Division 4 winners, but it just becomes a situation where almost being relegated might be better for next year's All-Ireland. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Can you put that graphic back up for a sec? It might be easier to kind of talk through. But yeah, it is kind of a good point you raised. Like, for example, if you see the 6th place team, and it's a good way of putting it, the GPA have kind of put it to try and make it easier for people to understand. Like, obviously you're looking at a situation where Monaghan, say compare Monaghan versus Kildare, like Monaghan are clearly going to be a better team for finishing 6th in Division 1 more than likely, whereas Kildare finished 3rd in Division 2, suddenly have a chance of being an All-Ireland series, and all they have to do is beat Leitrim, and now they're in a quarter-final. So I do accept, and it's the old saying, like, I can't give you the formula for success, but I can give you the formula for failure. Try to please everybody, and it is a kind of, they've tried and make it attractive enough for the weaker counties, because if there was no path to the senior All-Ireland final, I just can't see a way this would get through Congress. So I think this is the kind of, you know, the evil we've got to put up with here. Like, I think if you finish 6th in Division 1 and you avoid relegation, but you don't finish in that top 5, which has been your goal all year, I don't think you could have that big an argument to kind of be throwing your toys out of the pram that Kildare or Clare or Leitrim are given an opportunity. But I do accept, like, for example, the fact that one Division 3 team and one Division 4 team, the 2 winners, get through to the prelim quarterfinals, does mean that obviously if you're in Division 4, you have a better chance of reaching those prelim quarterfinals than Division 3. So there is a kind of like contradiction in there. But at the end of the day, you'll also, you want to be playing better games throughout. So I do think that will ultimately trump everything. The fact that we have this mix of league, you want to be, like, if you're in Division 3, you're only one good season away from Division 2. If you're in Division 4, you're miles off. You're not even in the same league altogether. And realistically, Division 4 teams and probably Division 3 winners will never really beat them in the prelim quarterfinals to get to those quarterfinals. But it does give them some sort of attraction to try and get there. But I do accept there are anomalies in it. And this is what I'm kind of talking about. If you pick holes at every single solution, there will be problems like this. And it is a really good example that you've given the one with Monaghan and then the Division 3 to Division 4. But I do think if you just see how it works out and see how teams kind of move on with it, I do think there's enough there. And it's also important to note, because a lot of people are saying, like, they're not knockout games, so they won't attract a big crowd. Like, Division 1, every single team will be playing until the death because there's 2 relegation and there's top 5. So there's only one team that'll end up doing nothing for the year. Division 2 is top 3 and then the bottom 2. So you're only really going to get those games in Division 3 and 4, which you're always going to get anyway. But they'll also have a Tailteann Cup to prepare for. So I do think there's a lot of positives opposed to negatives, but I do accept there are 1 or 2 kind of contradictions in the whole thing as well.
Yeah, I suppose like there are 1 or 2 like anomalies as well. Like I suppose the other one would even be for Offaly, for example, who, you know, won Division 3 last year. Obviously, well, they didn't win Division 3, but they're obviously promoted alongside Derry, like a huge achievement for them. You know, going up to Division 2 is obviously going to be very tough. Like Division 2 is going to be super competitive. But say, for example, if they were in Division 3 this year, they'd actually probably feel, you know, we could probably win that division. We could finish first and we could actually progress further into the All-Ireland series. So it is, I suppose it's one of them situations with Proposal B. Like it's the best proposal, but I don't think it is. Like I do think there will be some counties that probably aren't too happy with it. But again, that probably just comes down to their own sort of personal circumstances. So it's one of them. You can't please everyone, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's a good point. Like say Offaly, for example, like you do, like if I'm managing that team, you want to be playing the best teams to get better. Like, and it is an important point. Like a few years, it was maybe 15 or 20 years ago, but you know, the league structures that we have now, Division 1, 2, 3, and 4 used to be 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. And when we changed the system, it's worked brilliantly. Like there's so many good leagues, but what's ended up happening is, and not just because of the system, I think it was always going to happen, but it's widened the gap between Division 1 and Division 4 because Division 1 teams are just playing Division 1 teams. So what that means is if you want to get up to the higher levels, you've got to be playing in the higher divisions. And that's just going to be the case now if these counties want to progress. So I do think that will ultimately trump the couple of anomalies you've mentioned there, where a team will be like, well, if we're in Division 3, we might have a better chance of winning Division 3 instead of fighting for our lives in Division 2. I do think ultimately you'd rather be in Division 2 because at the end of the day, you're only one division off Division 1. And if you do finish in top 3, you're in those prelim quarterfinals anyway, whereas you do have to win Division 3. And if you get a good county in Division 3, it's not like a guaranteed either. But I don't want to go too far against arguing with that. I do accept a lot of the points, but I do think being in the best division will ultimately trump the couple of anomalies, like I mentioned, that are in there. But yeah, it will come down. And again, we won't really know until we see what happens, how counties react and how different management teams react as well.
Yeah, and I suppose another interesting one as well is how they're going to actually fit in all the games, because there actually is a lot of games, and I was even running through like there's another graphic I have here just of how the actual provincial championships will work, and this is I've taken this from the GPA as well. Now this isn't an official draw or anything like that. This is just obviously just like a mock draw for some, you know, certain extent. But you can see there, for example, like it's obviously in a round robin system. So you can see in Leinster, like in Group 1, you have the likes of your Dublin in there, Meath, Offaly, Carlow. Group 2, obviously 6 teams in there. You've got the likes of Wexford, Longford in there, and then obviously Ulster, round robin as well, Munster and Connacht. So, like, I mean, obviously they're going to be, the provincial championships are going to be run on a, you know, like pre-season tournament. So they're going to be before the start of the league, and then obviously the championship kind of follow the league-based championship, if you want to call it that. So, like, say, for example, you could have a situation where, let's say, for example, even a Dublin or a Kerry, or let's even like Galway, for example, any county there who goes on to potentially win the All-Ireland, they could end up playing nearly, you know, 16 to 17 games, with the fact that you have your provincial championship, you'll have your provincial semi-finals, you'll then have your provincial final, your 7 games in the league, and then obviously your quarter-final, semi-final, final. So, like, it will be interesting to see how they squeeze all those games in as well, because we all know at the moment they are trying to run obviously a split season for clubs and county, and obviously it's a very hard thing to do. And to be fair, this year they've done an okay job with it. But could that be an issue maybe, that there's so many games and they won't know how to fit them all in potentially?
I think it's all right, because if you look at the example you gave, so even if the graphic was up there again, so the Leinster team in particular would have the 5. If they're in the group of 6, you've got 5 games plus your semi-final and final, which would be 7. In between February and March, which is a 9-week, well, I suppose for February being only 4 weeks, it is an 8-week window. There's probably like an 8 or 9 week window. You're playing every week, but they're round robin, so it gives you a chance to try out new players. And, you know, you typically in February, March, you do get like 1 week, a weekend of snow. I think one year we had 2, which kind of messed everything up. So there might be 1 or 2 problems with that, but I don't think that would be too big an issue, because the rest of the division will kind of fit it in towards the end, given where you have like April, May, June, July. So you 4 months then for the rest of the championship, and there will be adequate break in there as well. I don't think that's a major issue, because I do think that they've really kind of worked on making sure there's a spare weekend, as far as I know, in the round robin provincials, but also that there'll be enough time to play these games as well. So I don't think that's as big an issue as maybe the anomalies that are in it, to be honest with you, because I do think they will get it through, and it'll only be a handful of teams that will have to play that extra weekend, and maybe like the league, they might start at the end of January. But I don't think the GAA will learn, because they've kind of been caught on the hop a couple of times in the old National League in 2019 and etc. with those couple of snow weekends that kind of messed everything up. But I think that aside, I think it'll be okay. I don't think it'll be like, there will be teams playing a lot week in, week out, but we've always had that with qualifier systems. And if you want to win All Ireland, that's the way you got to do it. But again, this provincial round robin, it does give you a chance to do that, try out new players, which teams do in the league anyway. I think there'll be a lot of that in the provincial championships, but people will be dying to watch that as well, So, but I don't think the number of games will be an issue, because I think they've done the numbers on it enough because they knew the split season was in before they did this proposal. So, or at least they know if the new proposal they've done now is on the basis of that split season. So.
Yeah, I suppose that will be an interesting one. All right, is definitely, I suppose, seeing what kind of way they structure it, and whether they start in February or March and then run it all the way up to September, I suppose. And I guess like one kind of, I suppose, to argue that point as well, I suppose we've been saying for how long that a lot of these counties don't get enough games. The likes of your Leithrams, your Fermanagh, the so-called lesser counties don't get enough games. So I suppose now we have a situation where all these counties are going to get, a huge amount of games. Every county is going to get an equal amount of games, and the only sides that will get more games are the teams that are winning. So it does seem like the most fair proposal, I suppose, in that sense. Matthew Hurley says here, if Monaghan finish 6th and also win Ulster, they won't get into the quarters. Doesn't that make a mockery of the system? And I suppose we were kind of saying that earlier quite a little bit. And I suppose, obviously, the provincial championships have been run at the start of the year, like we said before. Do you think there should have been a more kind of value to the provincial championships in some ways? Because, like, even for the winners, like let's say, for example, obviously this is hugely unlikely. Let's say Antrim go and win the Ulster Championship this year. I mean, that would be a huge achievement, obviously, for county like Antrim to go and do that. Like, it would be probably the biggest provincial shock of all time. They're in Division 3. It's probably, with all due respect, unlikely that they go and win Division 3. Now, if they won the Ulster Championship, they probably would win Division 3. But let's just say, for example, they don't win Division 3. You've then got a situation where Antrim have this huge achievement, this huge Ulster Championship win, but there's no, they don't necessarily get a huge reward for it, I don't think, in my opinion.
Well, even another Ulster county, Cavan, aren't they in Division 4 this year? So they're probably the perfect example. Like, they're the classic team that would, although they always do it, they always finish the season better than they started. But if they, for example, did win the Ulster and then did somehow finish second in Division 4, they wouldn't get to. They're the couple of points that maybe just see how it goes, and if it is something that happens, then maybe look at addressing it. But I think what the danger is happening a lot, and I see it a lot in the media, when people start to look, if you really dig into this, there are one or two contradictions. Like, I accept what Matthew Hurley's saying about Monaghan, I accept what you're saying about Cavan or Antrim winning an Ulster, or any other county winning a provincial and then not qualifying for the quarterfinals. But ultimately, the provincials are a separate competition now, and that's just the way it is. But it should never be ruled out that we won't have a look at this in the next 2 or 3 years. But the danger is if we really kind of get stuck on these couple of points, which in my opinion are easy fixes if they need to be fixed at all, because otherwise you're going to end up in a situation where this won't get voted because we need to do up the proposal again. We do up the proposal again, and we say we put those couple of things in, and the appetite's not there anymore, or something changes, and sure, next thing it's 5 years down the line, because we've been waiting for years to get to a point where we now have this proposal in front of Congress, and these issues aren't too big enough for us to kind of say, well, there are a few problems here. What if this happens? What if this happens? Let's see how it goes over a couple of year periods. And similar to what they did with Cavan and Tipperary last year, if you do win a provincial, you get into top, whatever that was. I can't remember the exact point, but they did kind of come up with something where the Cavan and Tipperary real like call it, because if that does happen and you don't qualify for quarterfinals, maybe it does make a mockery. But at the end of the day, the GAA have decided, the Pros will be have decided that unfortunately the provincials aren't part of the All Ireland series anymore. Therefore, why should we connect it? Is probably the ultimate argument there. So I think that's what they've ended up going for. But like that, if Monaghan do finish 6th and win Ulster, it'll be an absolute disaster for Pros will be supporters. But I think there's a way of working that where that won't happen again if it does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose Jack Nolte makes a good point here as well. He's saying if like normally Mayo, Kerry, Dublin, who come through their provincial championships, will probably finish in the top 6 in the league anyway. So then you had a situation where how do you kind of caveat that with some of the other counties. Maybe you go further down the divisions or something like that, maybe. But yeah, and I was even seeing what Tom Parsons said before, and he did actually say like he can make or they can make some tweaks to the system maybe next year or year after. So I suppose maybe for this year, do have the provincial championships at the start of the year, do that in the way that they're going to do it. Fair enough. I'm sure a lot of Propasal B people who voted anyway will be hoping there isn't a huge anomaly or a huge shock where you get an Antrim or a Cavan or a Sligo and Connacht or just something crazy like that. But I suppose the Taltine Cup, I wanted to speak a bit about that because obviously that's a new competition that will be coming in as well. I suppose a tier 2 competition and how that will actually work is, so we obviously discussed the teams that would progress on into the All-Ireland series. So basically the remainder of the sides in Division 3 and Division 4 and Division 2 as well would all progress into a 16-team tournament. I suppose like the Taltine Cup, like first of all, the name, I think in my opinion is kind of somewhat of an issue. Like in my opinion, I feel like the name should be, maybe I don't know, maybe they could call it like the Miko Dwara Cup or something like that, or just have a name that has some sort of like prestigious link to it. I think when you're calling it Taltine Cup, it's kind of just like, go down here. And I don't understand why, like maybe everyone's just calling it Taltine Cup because that's what they came up with originally. And maybe they're going to announce a new name or something like that. But like in hurling, for example, you've got the Joe McDonough, you've got the Christy Ring, you've got the Laurie Marr. Like surely for football, they're going to, and I know the name isn't the biggest issue, but I do feel like the advertisement of the tier 2 proposal, I think, is somewhat of an issue.
Yeah, I think like a Paddy O'Shea, I think that's the example Joe Brawley always uses in his pieces to call it the Paddy O'Shea Cup. And that's something I hadn't even registered with me. It could be something to do with what you said, that where we've called it the Talton Cup, but like, and even the fact the Talton Cup they were going to bring in was a bit of a disaster anyway. So I think it's kind of almost associated with that a small bit more. I do like it a lot better in this format, the way the 16 teams that don't qualify are now into a situation where they can fight for something that has a bit of meaning. And as I said, if the GAA do put a bit of, team holidays, have maybe a set of all-stars for it. The fact that it is 16 teams as well, I do like. It's not just like the 8 Division 4 teams kind of forgotten about. There will be some good counties in there. But yeah, you would be nervous about how it would go and how if it will be picked up by certain players. If you have a goal of winning an All-Ireland or getting to an Ireland series, it doesn't happen. Can you pick yourself up for a Talton Cup? It's hard to say, but again, the prize is big enough where you're in the Sam Maguire the following year where there is a small bit of incentive there, I guess. But yeah, I would be nervous about it, name aside, on how players will pick it up. Absolutely. I do think that will take a lot longer than the All-Ireland series, but yeah, I'll be a tad nervous around the Talton Cup. The name that doesn't really help it either, to be fair. So, and that's a good point, just at Mr. Bugsy's point, going back to what I was saying, just on the separate point, not to go too long on this, but I won't have sympathy. I won't be throwing my toys out of the pram on behalf of Monaghan if they win Ulster and then decide to lose 5 of their 7 league games to just about stay up and finish 6th, and then they want to be in the All-Ireland quarterfinal series. So it's a good point.
Yeah, fair. And a break from the norm says here they'll always be strong and there'll always be weak. We may get over it, I suppose. Well, I suppose just to caveat that, like we are just running through the proposals and the discussions and everything else and kind of just running through all the arguments for and against. Like I think we're both of the opinion certainly that Proposal B definitely should be brought in next year, and there definitely does need to be some sort of change. And I suppose even getting on that as well, like are we kind of, even with this whole like restructuring the championship and doing this and doing that, I do feel like, because even a break from the norm there who says they'll always be strong, they'll always be weak, and it's actually kind of a good point. It kind of leads me into what I was going to say next. Are we kind of getting away from the bigger issue, which is the fact that like a lot of these lesser counties don't have the resources to compete, don't have the resources to, is that more of a discussion in my opinion? Because even the Division 4 and Division 3 winners, like we could be left with a situation in 3 to 4 years where are they going to actually progress past that qualifier round? Are they going to get into the quarterfinals? And then if they get into the quarterfinals and play one of the Division 1 teams, maybe fair enough, they might have a lot of games and they can build and they can try different things out. But are we is this whole restructuring thing, like, is this the biggest issue, or are there other issues here that we're not discussing?
No, there's definitely other issues. And like, in fairness, it is a good point. Like, no matter what structure you come up with, you'll have Dublin, Kerry, Mayo, Tyrone, the usual counties, Division 1 counties up there. But I do think changing the format does reinvigorate a small bit, and every kind of counties on an equal footing. And if that means that I really see, you won't see that maybe weaker counties progressing as much, but like Leitrim, for example, you look at Leitrim, right? and they're an easy example, particularly Danny Moran's just gone in there, but like his first championship game under the old structure is a game against Mayo, right? And then, or whenever, sorry, if he doesn't draw Sligo, he's out of the Connacht Championship. And then he's in a qualifier. Like the qualifier, you've seen the attendance qualifiers. They're just, it hasn't not worked especially those early rounds. So Leitrim are left with no championship then for the year. But if Andy Moran comes in and he's like, right, you've got 7 games in Division 4 here. Well, if we win Division 4, we've actually got a crack at getting into an All-Ireland quarterfinal, which is absolutely amazing. And you're playing against teams at your level. Or sorry, Leitrim Division 3 this year, aren't they? Sorry.
Division 4.
Oh, Division 4, sorry. Yeah. I'm confused. Anyway, the point is that
a lot of teams to remember, I suppose.
Yeah, I know. And people, the teams care. Even like Cavan being in Division 4 is something I keep having to remind myself of, which I think is absolutely hilarious, to be honest with you, particularly given John McMahon's allegiance. But yeah, it just kind of reinvigorates it. You've got a small chance of an All-Ireland series, but if you fall just short, you've had a crack at it playing championship games, where league obviously would have been the main driving force. So I do think for Leitrim and other counties like that, which is the focus on, that Leitrim will never win in All-Ireland, not in our lifetime, but they have a chance now they're just on a more level playing field with other Division 4 counties in the country, if you know what I mean, that they're not losing to Mayo, to Galway and Roscommon every single year for pretty much since they won their kind of title or whatever. So it gives counties a level playing field, but I do accept it'll be the same All-Ireland winners. But if you're a weaker county now, or you're a county in the middle, you're kind of looking at, if you can get your act together and get some sort of a plan together, then maybe in a few years' time you can get into a quarterfinal. But it does give you that pathway where, like, another small example, quick example, Leinster counties, Laois, Westmeath. What is the point? Like, you're not going to win the provincial championships under the old structure, where you're playing against teams at your level. You've got a chance to get into a quarterfinal. If you're in Division 2, or if you're in Division 2, you've got to finish in top 3. And if you do there, you might avoid Dublin until an All-Ireland semi-final or an All-Ireland final. So particularly when Dublin were the only dominating force, I don't think Leinster counties particularly feared the other Division 1 counties as much, but I do accept that ultimately it'll be the same counties again.
Yeah, and I suppose a break from the norm was saying there as well, like the Tommy Murphy Cup that was in, I suppose, a good while ago, like years ago, and that was obviously brought in as a B competition. And if you even remember, you had the likes of the Kilkenny footballers in there as well, like, and it was an interesting competition, no doubt about it. And I actually spoke with Daniel St. Ledger, Carlow footballer, not too long ago. He actually played in a couple of games in that competition, and I think maybe that's the worry as well, because like what a break from the norm was saying there, like no one bought into it. And I think maybe the main reason why no one bought into it was because the games weren't being shown on television. There was no one speaking about the games. There was no preview of the games. And, fair enough, there's a lot of podcasts, like obviously this podcast and your own podcast, all the rest. Like, we can do our part to promote those games and to preview them in a way that we can. But is that maybe a worry as well, like with this Haltian Cup in particular, like that those games will kind of get left in the dark and people won't be able to see them or speak about them? Because, like in hurling, for example, when you look at the Joe McDonagh Cup, like there looks like there's some cracking games going on there, but for whatever reason the Sunday game don't even show the highlights or whatever. And I understand, you've only got a limited time, you've got an hour in there, you're trying to show football, hurling, camogie, all the rest, like, and I don't know, maybe they need to just show more and maybe have a football show, a hurling show, a camogie, a ladies football show, or something like that to that effect. But could that be an issue, maybe, the sort of promotion of the Haltian Cup, maybe?
Yeah, well, even like it's not too dissimilar to like the contract for Sunday game is they can show one highlight show. I always feel to kind of solve that problem is have a Saturday game highlight show, and not just for the big when like Dublin Mayo games on a Saturday or whatever, but like a lot of the Joe McDonagh matches that you mentioned happen to be on Saturday as well. So you'd split that up and maybe give that to Virgin Media, give that to TG Cahir. There's a lot of ways you can deal with the rights. I don't think they sell the rights. This is a whole different podcast, but the way they sell rights, and Willie Parkinson's some good work on this in the GAA, is absolutely so amateur. It's ridiculous, and getting absolutely no money from Sky yet, where all our games are on Sky. So we're getting a terrible deal there, but we can get into that another day. I wouldn't be as fearful because we have the mistake with the Tommy Murphy Cup. It's there in black and white for everyone to see why that didn't work. You add GAA Go into the mix now, and for supporters of those counties, straight away you've got some sort of streaming service. The great thing that's come from COVID is, I know GAA Go was in existence before, but not in Ireland, whereas now you can kind of access those games for a fee, and people are happy to pay that fee if it's a good broadcast, if it's streamed well, good commentators, and they can watch their team, or indeed they can go to the match. So I do think it's important the GAA Go come on board, but yeah, put something in the contract where the semi-finals are a double header in Croke Park and they're on TG Cahir, or the final as a curtain raiser to the All-Ireland final. I do think that would be massively important. And if you want to have the minor final on as a triple header, or you try and put the minor final somewhere else in the calendar, I do think this trumps a minor final. Again, we're going away from traditions here a lot, but I think in the long run it'll work out. So I think if you have the Tottenham Cup, like you look at the women's GA and what they have in the Camogie as well, the junior, intermediate and senior. And you've only got to look at this year and what Meath ladies have done. But like if you've won first of all, if you're Meath intermediate lady and you've lost, or women player, and you've lost the All-Ireland intermediate final in 2018 and 2019, and then you're sitting there watching the senior final, you know, that's almost motivating you, going, right, we've just got to win with this intermediate. And then you win it in 2020, and then you watch the senior final in Croke Park on the same day. It's right in front of you. And that definitely has played a small part in Meath being able to realizing that weren't the standard of football they're seeing, in their opinion, isn't a million miles from what they're playing. And then they go ahead and win the All-Ireland this year. Maybe a lot, like Leicester win the league, a lot of things happened there or whatever. But the fact is they did it because, you know, if you can see it, you believe it, and it was in front of them. So why can't we have the Tottenham Cup final before an All-Ireland final? And you see the standard, we're going, Jesus, and they're not a million miles away from what's on offer. So I do think that's very important on promotion of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a perfect example as well is even in hurling last year when you had the Joe McDonagh Cup final on before the the All Ireland final. And fair enough, obviously he had the Donald Lowe Cusack comments and he was criticising, I suppose, the way the game was, and it wasn't the best game, to be fair, between Kerry and Antrim. There's definitely been a lot better games between those two counties down the years, but that was the perfect sort of scenario there where you have, you know, the Joe McDonagh on before the All Ireland final. I thought they should have done that this year, in all honesty. I'm not too sure why they didn't. And, you know, if they were to do something like that, maybe not on the same day, but maybe on the same weekend or something like that. You have the Tailteann Cup final maybe on the Saturday, the All-Ireland final on the Sunday. And I think it would be brilliant then for promotion, because when everyone's speaking about the All-Ireland final and previewing the All-Ireland final, they'll also then go and preview the Tailteann Cup final as well. Like, you know, like that game will be there and people will discuss it. So I think that's definitely something worth discussing as well. I suppose Mr. Bugsy even said here, he says players will definitely commit to a season at the highest level when there's more games on offer. And I suppose that is kind of the big point we were speaking about with Proposal B. Like, it's more games, especially for some of the lesser counties down the years, like what we were saying before. And I don't mean to always pick out specific counties, but, you know, your Division 3 or Division 4 counties would normally only have in the Championship maybe 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 or 4. Maybe you might do what Wicklow did on Mick O'Dwyer and go on a wonderful run, or maybe what Fermanagh done back in 2004 when they went to an All-Ireland quarter-final. But at least in this way, like, you're guaranteed games. And I suppose it's perfect for the players, because we've seen a lot of players with some of those counties. Like even in Leitrim, you've had the likes of Emlyn Mulligan, Ryan O'Rourke can't seem to get a look in there. Like, maybe this will entice some of those great athletes and great players to actually play the sport. And then I suppose what will happen then is the competitiveness will increase. Yeah,
like in my opinion, Armagh were Jamie Clark away from an All-Ireland semi-final at least this year. Well, at least that's what I tell myself as I rip up my bet slip of Armagh winning an All-Ireland every year. But it is an important point. Like, in the fact players are leaving, I know Paul Mannion might have been leaving for different reasons with the Dublin management team, but there's a lot of players not playing the game. But if they have, like, if you've suddenly got a 6-month window here where you've so many more games, that I just think it ultimately trumps everything. And like Niall Morgan's comments, this is Niall Morgan, who won an All-Ireland with Tyrone under the old system this year, sorry, and he's already advocating that this is what us players want. I don't know who was interviewed. Was it Conor Myler, or it might have been one of the Tyrone players anyway, was saying that 3 times a week they're training and that's it. You know what I mean? That we don't want to devote our life to GA, and the fact there's more games now means less training, more matches. And you ask any player across the country, from under-8s club all the way to Dublin senior footballers or Tyrone senior footballers, they want more games. They want more games that mean something and less training. So I just think it trumps everything. It'd be brilliant. And one thing just on the comparison to the ladies game, like they were established in 1974. So essentially they came up with their, you know, junior, intermediate, senior not too long after that. The point is that now we're in the 2021 here. What's the best format for men's football to progress? And I do think this isn't a million miles away from what would be seen as a perfect solution. So I think it's worth going for more games for players. And if all Ireland winners are saying that to you, as well as 80% of the GPA, then it's just a no-brainer, absolutely, to just give it a go and see what happens, because it will get us all excited. Like I mentioned top of the show, like the excitement. What are we previewing now? We're previewing the Ulster. What's happening here? Round robin? What's going on? Like, Jesus, is there a semi-final in Ulster, but there's no semi-final in Munster? What's going on there? Less counties, you know. it'll be fun. It really will, honestly. Go for Proposal B, Thomas K. Feel spot on, Thomas.
There we go. Yeah, no, I think we're all of the opinion anyway that Proposal B is definitely the best proposal. Like, and I suppose as well, like with Ulster Championship, like because that is the I keep saying also I meant to say provincial championships. Like, could that be something as well, like further down the line where maybe they even have a situation where they end? Because I think there's a worry there as well that the provincial championships will lose value. No one will speak about them. Blah blah blah. And then there'll come a point where they go, right, we're going to have to draw a line in the sand here, and we're probably going to have to get rid of the provincial championships. Like maybe attendances fall, like maybe there's not enough interest. Like I feel like that's kind of one of the big worries there with Proposal B.
Well, like they were compared to the McGrath Cup or they compared to the O'Byrne Cup. They were still like, I think like when the Ulster counties were going very well, there was terrific attendances in the preseason competition up there, like in January. You know, like talks of like 10,000. They're a bit mad up in Ulster, like for watching football, which is brilliant. Like, so you get 10,000 up there. Like, so I don't see it being like they're 100%. It'll be somewhere in the middle. There won't be. It's not Ulster in July, Ulster final with an All-Ireland quarterfinal to come, but it's still no football for 6 months. It's club football from August the 1st all the way to January 20 the following year. So you get to a situation where January is for pre-season, so you're not February. So that's 7 months. And you're not. Are we not going to go to one of Dublin's round robin qualifiers? Am I not planning my Paddy's weekend and hoping Dublin get an away fixture so we can all go and have a few points and watch the Dubs? Like, do you know what I mean? It's that sort of thinking, and that's just talking on Dublin hat, but across the country, again, and it's only like your local provincial championships, but it's played in February, March. Having watched no football for 6-7 months or just club football, you're dying to see how your inter-county team's going. So I don't buy this doom and gloom that it's, you know, is it devalued? Well, clearly it is a small bit because it's not linked to the All-Ireland series, but will that ultimately matter as much as everyone's saying is? I don't think so. And the reason is because there'll still be interest in this game. It's not like it's in the depths of winter in January and people don't even know. Like the O'Byrne Cup was starting at the start of December or mid-December, the last time it was in before COVID. Like that's how bad things were getting. And COVID's kind of helped us all to have a pause and realize, well, a lot of people were saying 10 years ago that a split season should happen. And COVID's made us realize and got us this far where we've got a Proposal B where we could play off in 6 months, but there's actually only 5 months of action here. 6 months of action, sorry, at the end of July. But the February and March is going to be people that want to, like the National League, people that went to National League games in February, March of 2019 will be back to watch the February, March provincial round robin games. I'm convinced of it. And there will obviously not be, 82,000 at Croke Park watching Dublin play Meath in a Leinster final, but you might get, what you get in a Allianz League game in February, maybe 20,000. But what were you getting in provincial finals anyway before that? 40, 30, 40, 50,000 anyway. So let's all take a step back here. I don't think it's all doom and gloom. And I think the provincials, if the Ulster counties think they have this amazing product up there, it should survive with Ulster semi-finals and finals and a round robin competition because the rivalry there is amazing and it will. I promise them that. Like I heard Brian McAvoy comparing it to the Ulster Hurling Championship, and when it lost its link to the All-Ireland series, it was devalued. Like that's honestly the biggest level of nonsense I've ever heard because you're just comparing apples with oranges, simple as. But the Ulster Football Championship is amazing. It'll be well supported. You'll be surprised at some of the attendances. Particularly some of those stadiums in Ulster are amazing. They're like the perfect size, 10, 12, 14,000. Like the Athletic Grounds and Armagh spring to mind. They'll be jammers if they get a home Ulster semi-final. Definitely. In Paddy's weekend in March, 100%.
100%. Well, I suppose you've definitely, argued a lot of the points for Proposal B.
Maybe
we should put yourself in front of the central task force or something like that. Scrap the GPA. We'll send you, go down. You can give all the arguments, and then we can just get it over and done with, and then we're ready to go.
Well, that's the big thing. I'm not 100% convinced it'll get through. Like I don't know where to start trying to figure out some of the votes. I did briefly have a look a couple of days ago, and just
because it's 60%, isn't it? 60%.
Yeah, but just to see
then
where
if it's not 60%, then we stick with what we have, isn't it? And that's the big worry is like it's almost like surely they just need to jump on it. Like,
and what I was saying to you off air is because it's now a new calendar, we've got to get it in this time frame. The Super 8's no longer fit in the old system where we have a National League games and preseason competitions and then Super 8. So now the Super 8s are gone next year if it doesn't get through, and we'll just have straight quarterfinals, which is a better system than the Super 8s because we just showed you what a big load of nonsense we were sold with the Super 8s. And yeah, it kind of would make you a small bit angry that there was so much promise with that, and there was so much there was so much politics to get that through. yet we're still left in the mess now where we don't even have Super 8s anymore, no matter what happens. So we wasted about 3 or 4 years of that, but we're here now. And I think this proposal, not that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, but we could be another couple of years back at the table here if this doesn't get through. And what I mentioned, it's a lot easier to get, as far as I know, the reason it's a lot easier to get, and I can be corrected on this, into get through in special Congress as opposed to Congress, is that there's only half the delegates there. So straight away, you're right. You know, there's less people to convince, essentially, is the thinking there.
Yeah, well, I suppose we could go on and on for hours and hours and discuss every, I suppose, element of the championship. But no, look, listen, I appreciate your time, Daniel. I appreciate you coming on. I suppose your own podcast, Tackling Sport. Where can people find you and find that podcast?
Yeah, at Tackling Sport, all social media, and you can get it on our YouTube channel or all your podcast platforms there. We cover a lot of sports. At the moment on Monday, we'll be talking about the Ireland-Azerbaijan win, which is rare because since we started on Tackling Sports, it's been all doom and gloom with Stephen Kenny. So we're big Stephen Kenny fans. Well, not big Stephen Kenny fans, but we see what he's trying to do. So it's nice to talk after winning 3-0 as opposed to defending the indefensible of a 1-0 Luxembourg at home defeat. But yeah, at Tackling Sport is where you can get us all social media.
Perfect, Daniel. I appreciate your time anyways. And yeah, cheers very much for coming on. Cheers to anyone who watched the podcast anyway. There will be an audio version released to Spotify at some time tomorrow. And yeah, so stay tuned for that, and leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks very much for tuning in.